Hello everyone and welcome. This is Jamie at Cluey Amateurs, and today I'm going to be taking a lockback knife and converting it into a slip joint. Specifically, I'm going to be converting this lockback knife. This is the Shrade Double Lockback, which, as the name suggests, has two blades, one plain edge and another serrated edge, both of them one hand opening, and each with their own independent back locking mechanism. We've also got a pocket clip on there, not reversible, but gives a nice deep carry, which is good. I'll also talk briefly later about how you can make it kind of reversible. And the scales, hope this is in focus, have this lovely honeycomb texture, which I think gives the knife a much more premium feel than its price point would suggest. And I paid just £9 for this on Heine Haynes. Now, the design of this reminds me of the Spyderco bird wings, which was a thing a few years ago. That, however, had liner locks, I believe, until they released the slip joint version, but it was a much more expensive knife. And yeah, this is a good, cheap alternative, which is actually still available. But I imagine we've got quite a few people saying, well, hang on a minute, why would you want to take a lockback knife, which is nice and safe, and convert it into a slip joint? Well, the short answer to that is that I live in the UK, and in the UK it's a criminal offence to carry a knife unless it has a blade with less than 3 inches in length, which this does. Both blades are just under 3 inches in length, and is folding and non-locking. Other countries' laws also have quirks like this. So in Germany you can have a locking knife, you can have a one-handed opening knife, but you can't have a one-hand opening locking knife. So if you're in Germany, you might find this useful as well. Now, credit for this must go to Subwoofer over at Tactical Reviews, where he runs a great gear blog, and he really bit the bullet with this and did this with a couple of his Spyderco knives. So a lot of what I do in today's video I've based on that. Now, a few more details on the knife. I already talked about the size and design. The steel is HCR13 MOV, so not the most premium steel, but not bad for the price point so long as you look after it. And I think that's about it. So we're going to go over now to talk a bit about how slip joints and how backlocks work, so that we can think about how we can get from a backlock to a slip joint. Okay then, so here we have a couple of diagrams of knives, like cross sections, that I've just drawn out very roughly, and we can see that, let's find something to point with, so we can see that the design of a slip joint is actually pretty similar to the design of a backlock knife. In a slip joint, you've got this solid metal back spring running the length of the knife. It's normally a sprung piece of steel with a pivot in the middle, and this fits flush to the back of the knife, but it doesn't lock in. There's no notch, that's just two flat surfaces touching. It's that tension that holds the knife open. But as in the case of this Boca Tech tool, so you can see the slip joint there, when I push on that, enough pressure just opens that up and folds the knife, making it non-locking. In a backlock knife, you've got a similar piece of metal running the length of the knife. However, this isn't itself sprung, it's just pivoted, and then there'll be a spring somewhere at the base of this lever, and it's the pressure on this that keeps the knife locked. But you'll notice here we've got a notch in the back of the blade, and we've got a little hook on the end of that lever that clicks into it. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this on here, but you can see there lifting up that we've now taken the little hook out of the notch in the blade, and so we can fold it. However, when it is open, you hear it click in, making it impossible to fold when we put pressure on the knife. Okay, so just get that folded up. Now, what I'm hoping to do with this mod is to file a little bit of metal from this notch on the blade to the point where these still make contact, like in the slip joint, but they no longer lock in place, as is currently the case with the liner lock. So next up, we're going to disassemble the knife and make a start filing down the notch on the blade. We're going to start by working on the serrated blade. So there you've got your serrated blade, There are two reasons for this. So I've already taken this apart once and I found that actually it has a weaker spring on it. So it should give us less metal to file off and give us a starting point when we do the plain edge blade. The other reason is that I'm not a big user of serrated blades. It won't get nearly as much use as the plain edge. So if I do make any mistakes, I would rather make them on the serrated blade. So let's get started disassembling. So you'll need a star bit to loosen up these two screws. So we'll start off by we'll loosen the plain edge one off, but leave it in just so we don't have, leave it in so we don't have parts everywhere. And we will remove the one for the serrated blade. Now you want to push this rivet through the knife, but whatever implement you do that with, you don't want something that's going to stick into the hole where the screw came out, because if you do that you could damage the thread. So I've just got a hex bit here. I should have checked what size this is. I think it might be a 4mm, but if you just push that through, then the rivet comes out nicely, and that just pushes on the top surface of that rivet rather than risking damaging the thread. Okay, at that point you can see the blade's already popped out from the pressure of the spring, so we'll just remove that. And you'll notice that on the blade there is this plastic shim washer. Now these are not very well made at all. This one's already starting to burr. When I first took the plain edge blade out, this, if I can get hold of it, this is the state that I found the shim washer in. They're just not really up to the task. So what I've got are some spare disc brake shims for a mountain bike. So I'm going to have a go at replacing the plastic shim washers with some of these, and hopefully that will work. Anyway, that is our serrated blade out. So I'm now going to clamp this to the desk and we'll start filing. So to make sure that I don't remove too much metal, I'm just going to do a little bit of filing, reassemble the knife, more filing, and so on. Obviously this will take a while this way, but if you do remove too much, you won't get any, or you won't get enough tension in the lever to hold the blade in place, so it won't be safe to use. You might also find that as it is now, the backlock lever sticks out of the handle, which probably make it quite uncomfortable to use. And one final thing, obviously we are now handling blades in a way they weren't designed to be handled, so do just be careful when you're doing this. If you buy one of these knives just to do this with, they don't come particularly sharp out of the box, so I would recommend doing this before you sharpen up the blades. Anyway, let's get it clamped down and start filing. So got our serrated blade, and we're going to clamp it down to the workbench so that we can grind down this corner. Now I initially tried doing this with a couple of hard steel files, however I found that they just weren't cutting it. So I've got my rotary tool out and we're going to have a go at grinding it down using one of the aluminium oxide grinding stone, silicon carbide grinding stones that I've got. It might be that I have to mute this bit of video or possibly remove the footage altogether, because let's be honest, no one wants to listen to the sound of metal being ground down. But let's give it a go, see if we can knock some of that corner off. So that's actually made very light work of it, and there is a possibility I have already taken off too much. So let's get that back together and give it a go. Now in terms of reassembly, because this is just for a test, I'm not going to put the shims back in yet, and I'm also not going to put the screws back in yet. In terms of getting these back together, what you want to do is lay the blade in an open position. So depress the lever that you would use to lock it so it's flush with the handle, and then you should just be able to pop the rivet back in. Now I can feel that's really got some give in it now. So you can see now that it's back together, there is some give, there's some play there that wasn't there before. So we're just going to keep chipping away, removing a little bit at a time until it doesn't quite lock. Okay, so Serrated Blade, after just 2 rounds, oh, wrong one. After just 2 rounds of grinding, clicks open nicely, but now with, you still have to put a fair amount of pressure on it. I mean, I'd be comfortable using it. It's not such a loose slip joint that it's unusable, but you no longer need to depress the backlock switch in order to get it to fold. So at this point, we have taken our backlocking serrated blade and we've turned it into a slip joint. So that's that end done. Next up, we've got the plain edge. Now, when I first found I was able to fold this, to get that first fold, I had to really apply a lot of pressure. I think that probably just took the last little burr from the grinding off to allow for smooth folding afterwards. So don't just think, oh, it's not folding with a little bit of pressure, I'll keep grinding. Do give it a good push, obviously make sure your hands aren't in the way, and see if you can get it to start to fold. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to reassemble the serrated end. Both ends are pretty much the same, and then we're going to get the plain edge out and make a start on that. Okay, so reassembling the serrated end. Now, serrated blade needs to go back in here, between this liner and this scale, and you should have a shim, so I'm replacing it with this nice steel one, a bit bigger than the original but should work. That goes between the metal liner and the blade. So you want to get that in place, then depress the backlock switch as if you were unlocking the knife, and slide the knife into place or the blade into place as well. Now you might find that the shim juts into the gap or the knife doesn't sit right. At that point you can get the hex bit that you push the rivet through with, just get it in the hole, give it a wiggle to push everything to the edge so that you've got a nice clear hole to pop your rivet back through. So rivet coming through from the other side, there it is. Then get our star screw back in, star bit, whatever you want to call it. Get that done up. Obviously, you will be putting pressure on the sides of the blade if you do this up too tight, so you don't need it torqued right up. And there you have it, one slip joint serrated blade on your double lockback. So, on to the plain edge. Obviously, we're now working on the other screw. The only things you really need to think about here are the fact you've got a slightly stronger back spring, you've got the pocket clip, which we're just removing now, and also everything's obviously a mirror image of what you were working with before, because we're now working on the other side and the other end of the knife. Once again, just using that star bit and the hex bit to push the rivet through. Now you notice the lever on this one springs out quite a bit more. That is because of the stronger spring. Now I don't know if that's a design feature or just because of Shrade's slightly iffy quality control. Sorry, I keep going out of focus. Come on, there we go. Yeah, so you may find that if your back spring is stronger, you need to remove a bit more metal, but seeing as I nearly overshot the mark last time, I'm going to go really easy on this one, just removing a tiny bit at a time. Once again, I'm going to clamp it down to the table. Now I'm sure lots of you are cringing because I'm ruining the coating on the blade, but it's not a great coating. You can see just from me fiddling with the knife a bit, it's already coming off around here, and my plan is to just strip it off completely. Personally, I think this will look nicer with the coating removed. So once again, just clamping that down. As I mentioned before, you just want to make sure that when you're handling the blade, obviously you're not passing your fingers across any sharp surfaces. Right, and that's our plain edge all clamped down. Let's get grinding. taken a little bit off. Pop that back into the handle, into the scales, and see if it's a slip joint yet. As I said before, don't want to overshoot because then this isn't going to be any use to man or beast. So obviously now having to put the rivet back in the top, unless you do everything the other way around, which I may have to do, so we can see. Yeah, the plain edge is slightly trickier to work on in that sense. So it is easier than I'm making it look. It's just that it's a bit tricky when you're reaching around a camera. There we go. Okay, so plain edge still very locked up, so we'll need a bit more grinding on that. Sorry, got the rivet stuck and had to do it off camera. So you can see after the second round of grinding, I've got a bit of play there, but still locking. Now this is the point where I nearly overshot the mark with the Serrated Blade, so I'm going to go very easy now, probably just taking off the tiniest bit of metal. I might just give it one big push with my fingers out of the way. No, so definitely still fully locked up. There we go. So, moment of truth. Okay, we've got a lot more play. I'm just going to bring it close to me so I can give it a good hard push. Right, so more play, but still not a slip joint. So another round of grinding. Again, we've got more play. I've just given it a press against the table, but it's still locking. So we're going to keep on grinding. So this time I've tried to round this point off a bit, so we'll see if that makes any difference. Okay, so that's round 4 of grinding. Let's get the blade back in and see if we have made a slip joint. Okay, so I just had to take it off camera for a moment there to give it a good hard press against the edge of a table, because now it snaps open nicely, but then snaps shut. Now, where I've ended up putting a slightly weird profile on that hook, it actually kind of snaps in 2 stages. It's almost like it's got a little half stop out here, which is actually really nice from a safety point of view on slip joints. I do actually like them to have a second stop, but that was entirely accidental. So let's do the final reassembly on this, and then we'll take a look at it once it's done. So we'll pop that rivet out again so we can get another shim in. Now, based on how much trouble I've had just getting the rivet in, getting it in with the shim is going to be a real pain on this one. So grab another one of those shims. Now, I thought it'd be an issue, might be an issue that they were too big, but they're actually held in the in the back of the knife by the rivet, or at least the one I've used up here is. So hopefully we'll have the same here. Now, once again, you want the shim between this central liner and the blade. Okay, so this one actually seems a bit tighter, again, probably because of Shrade's budget quality control. So what I'm having to do is slide them both into the end of the knife together, like so. Hopefully they'll both reach the opening together. Yeah, that looks good. Once again, use this, just get it in there, wobble it around to line everything up and ensure that it's possible to get a rivet through. Then just press that rivet through while everything's nice and lined up. Okay, so it's through the blade. There we go. Okay, so got the shim in there. I'm a bit worried now that the extra friction at the base of the blade might actually cause it to lock up again, but we'll get the screw back in and have a look. So just put the pocket clip back on, get the star bit on there. Now another thing to note while we're at this stage is if you wanted these blades the other way around, so if you wanted the serrated blade at the end where the pocket clip is and the plain edge down here, you could actually just pop these blades out and swap them over in order to do that. That would be a nice easy change to make if you wanted to. Okay, so moment of truth, and it still folds. Okay, I've over-talked that a bit. Okay, very good. So there we have it. That is our backlock to slip joint conversion. And there we have it. We have converted our lockback knife, which wouldn't be legal in the UK, you wouldn't be able to EDC it, to a slip joint, which you probably still couldn't EDC in the UK. That's because it looks tactical, it looks threatening, and UK's offensive weapon laws are written in such a way that even something designed for the UK market, like I've got the Heine edition of the Boker Tech Tool 1 here, under 3 inches, clearly a slip joint. If you are carrying this in the wrong place or in a way that is deemed threatening, it is still an offensive weapon even though it meets the UK criteria. This has this very tactical blade profile, it has the blacked blades, it's probably going to be seen as threatening. To try and remedy that a bit, I'm going to try taking the coating off the blade, which I think will just look better anyway, and then maybe it will be a slightly more UK suitable EDC knife. So that's about it for today. Please do comment if you've had a go at this or if there's anything you do differently. Do hit the like button and please do subscribe. This isn't just a knife and gear channel, we're also going to do a bunch of outdoor stuff, I'm going to do some science projects, and we'll be doing some car and truck stuff. So a real eclectic mix, and I hope that you join us for the ride. For now though, I've been Jamie, this has been Cluey Amateurs, and I'll see you next time.